Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever and whenever you are listening to this episode of the Secret Sorceress Society. We're going live on YouTube first and foremost, and it may find its way to my Spotify account, but who knows? Because just like my great friend Rochelle, who has given me the honour of interviewing me today, we're very much in the flow. And we are very much about what will be, will be. So what's going to be happening today is in just a moment, I am going to be handing over to my great friend, Rochelle Hubbard, the friendship we never thought would be. And if you want, you can go and listen to our story on Rochelle's podcast, The Core of the Rising. And I am an absolute fan of her podcast, and at some point she will come back on here as a proper guest. But for today, she's the lady in the chair, and she's going to be talking to me all about the calling, because I think sometimes it's really great to have somebody else asking you the questions as the service provider, because it puts you on your toes, it makes you really think about what it is you're doing. And hopefully for some of you, it's going to answer the questions of just what the fuck is the calling? So over to you, Rochelle.
So what the fuck is the calling?
Some people are just like, Mary Taylor's banging on about the calling. What is it? It is a 6-month coaching container. It is an opportunity for you to be held, guided, and walk beside me as I show you how to retire Superwoman, how to embody 5 soft power archetypes that are going to allow you to come back home to yourself, to get out of the constant need to be in the masculine and to truly honor the woman that you came here to be. So over the 6 months, we look at what does Superwoman mean to you? How has she been holding you up? How you can retire her, what it means to retire her. We dive deep into each of the 5 soft power types. And then we spend time, once we've retired Superwoman, got to know the archetypes in a little bit more detail, because you get to dance with them, play with them, embody them. We then start to look at various tools and practices that you can then start implementing into your day-to-day life. So that includes things like cycle tracking, batching for energy matching, how to speak to somebody that's in the masculine, how to ask for what you need and want, and more importantly, what you deserve. And then at the end of the 6-month container, we go back and check in with your values and belief system. That's something that we do at the start as well. And that is always the absolute light bulb moment for many of the women who have journeyed with me so far, is all of a sudden to recognize that their value system hasn't necessarily changed, but the order has changed. And then I offer follow-up contact every month, because as we all know, transformation doesn't just happen in 6 months. You know, we need time to go away, to step away from the container, to get back into real life, but knowing that there's a safety net where we can come. And also what I think is really important about the calling is it's an opportunity to work with other women, or those who identify as women. So it's open to anybody who identifies as a woman, because when women come together in true sister circle to hold and support and cheer each other on from a place of no judgment, but simply to say, me too, then magic truly happens. And one of the biggest sort of enlightening aspects of the calling for the women that worked with me on the first round, so to speak, was that understanding that actually they could learn to trust other women, and that other women could learn to trust them as well. So basically, in its essence, it's a coaching program to empower you to be whoever the fuck you want to be, and show up as whoever the fuck you you want to show. Now, the reason I'm swearing is not just for effect, because someone might be thinking that, is because I do swear. So if you're going to come on my coaching program and you don't like somebody that swears, then absolutely now's the time to press pause, because I am not the coach for you. If you're looking for someone with a messy bun who turns up, you know, in our Omanar logo t-shirts and simply holds the space for you however you want to show up that day, then yeah, keep playing, keep listening.
Amazing. I was making notes as you were talking because there were a couple of things I wanted to go into more. Just a couple of quick questions around the first. You said one thing that I wasn't sure what you meant, so maybe other women won't either. You said something about batching for energy matching. Is that right? It sounds like a rap. I love it. What does that mean?
So once we get to know the power types, one of the things that you may not be aware of is that women's energy changes through the month. And I think this is one of the biggest things that women struggle with in this very masculine world, is that our energy flows through the month. So at different times of the month, we have different energy. But also, when we're constantly spinning all the plates and trying to switch from, you know, the appraisal meeting to getting the kids home from school to cooking the dinner to doing our marketing if we're a solopreneur, we're constantly switching our energy through the day. And that constant switching of energy through the day is very, very depleting. So how about I could teach you a way to batch your energy? So for example, one of the power types is the lover, and she is very powerful around the time of ovulation, mid-cycle, because, you know, ovulation is all about the birds, the bees, calling it in, that manifesting, that being out there around other people. She's also a great power type for embodying, if you're maybe wanting to do sales talks, reels, presentations, a podcast recording. But if you're trying to do that and then also, you know, do your admin or come up with a strategy, that switching backwards and forwards is depleting our batteries. So I would invite you to think about when's the best time, maybe in the month, for me to be doing that kind of work. But also, if in a week I have to do that kind of work, let's put all that sort of lover activity together in the morning. Then shake it off, and then maybe in the afternoon we step into a different power type and do all of the activities around that, so that we're not constantly feeling like we're being pulled all over the place. And it's definitely something for me that it's starting to become that unconscious competence, aka I now do it unwittingly. So I know for me, and I'm going to start sounding very woo for a lot of people who don't even, you know, appreciate that we can harness or work with the moon energy. So I'm a postmenopausal woman, and obviously I no longer have a bleed cycle, but I still most certainly have an energetic cycle, and I can definitely feel when my energy is shifting. Although now that I'm moving further and further into that next chapter of my life, I'm kind of hovering around quite a lot of this ovulatory energy. Yay. But I also know coming up to a new moon would be my sort of what we call the queen phase. And again, I know for some people it'll sound like I'm talking Japanese. So that queen is that very discerning part of us, but she's very good for setting the vision, for admin, for, you know, really clearing, getting very clear on the focus. So I now know I do all of my admin in the week before the new moon. So I don't need to worry about it the rest of the month. I don't need to get concerned that it isn't going to be happening, because I know my energy will be very much in the space of I'm going to do admin's there. So I can then get on doing the fun things, getting out there, knowing that my energy will be at its maximum for all of my admin tasks over there.
It's so powerful, that it's just so powerful for women to understand how to live in their cyclical nature. It's like we're not linear beings like men.
No.
And yet you mentioned, as you were describing the calling, about how to speak to the masculine. Did you say that? How to speak to the masculine?
Yeah.
And we have, as women, been very much living in the masculine. You and I were talking about this yesterday. We talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
By the way, I really would encourage, if any women are listening to Mary and thinking, what does any of this mean? What that means is this is for you. If you don't know what this means, it means this is for you, because this knowledge and the support of Mary to take you through this learning over the 6 months will literally change your life.
Yeah.
And I know that I haven't done the calling myself, but I have done a lot of this work, and I have the privilege of knowing Mary very, very well. She's a really close friend, and we have beautiful conversations together. If anyone's going to be able to support you through this, I know that she will, and it is absolutely life-changing. So if you are listening to Mary speak and be like, I don't know what any of this means, what I would encourage you to do is not expect yourself to know what any of it means, but chew it in, that it's something that you need. You don't need to know right now what all the ins and outs of it are and what all the words mean and the energies and what that all means. You just need to sit inside and intuit that this is something that you're literally being called to do. It's called the calling for a reason, right?
Absolutely. And, part of the reason the name came about is I run other programs, and, again, you have been in,
Yes.
the Gather the Women program that I run, and I do my cacao ceremonies.
Wow.
And I also now run something called Dance Into Your Power, which is sort of is the aftermath, or it may be the precursor or the post of the calling. And so many women arrive in a space with me and say, I don't know why I'm here. I just knew I had to be. I was called, I just knew I had to be. And so for me, it was then about, this is about the calling. If you hear it, if you've resonated, if you've clicked and commented on a post or a reel that I've done, then you're being called.
That's it. If you're watching and you're feeling it, it's just exactly it. Could you tell us a little bit more about what you mean about speaking to the masculine? Because I know, up until 2 years ago, I was hearing those words a lot, masculine and feminine, but I had no real understanding of what that meant. So it might be just as an overview, just interesting.
Yeah. So I think the first thing that we all need to be very clear on is that we all have masculine and feminine energy. Whoever or however you identify, though, we all have masculine and feminine energy. But many of us operate in the masculine, the do. So the masculine energy is very much about the doing. The feminine energy is very much about the being. And obviously, because of the world that we live in, we live very much in a do world. Both you and I are ex-corporate. Quite often, I sometimes use the word whores, but but we're both, we've both played being in the corporate world. I worked, my last proper job was in motor manufacturing. We were androgynously dressed. I used to be the absolute glitter butterfly. I'd stick as many glitter butterflies and earrings and all the rest of it. But fundamentally, we were all androgynous. It was a very, very masculine doing. And don't get me wrong, as someone who identifies as a woman, someone who is female, we need masculine energy. But it's a little bit like men are from Mars and women are from Venus. We communicate in different ways. And the easiest way to give an example of that is when my partner spends half an hour on the phone with his brother, and I say, "Oh, how's Claire? What are they doing?" He's like, "I don't know." Yet, if you and I had a conversation, I would literally be able to tell Dan your inside leg measurement and where your period's at. It's that very, very different way of connecting. And for a lot of women, or for a lot of people who are very much in that feminine energy, trying to communicate with someone who's in a very masculine energy, coming from a feminine perspective, they just can't hear it. Now, it could be a female who's very much in the masculine energy. And how do you communicate, and how do you influence? And influence sometimes is about how do you get them to hear you? I'm very much about learning how to be seen, how to be heard, and how to be felt. So one of the things that I always invite anyone who has a female cycle to think about is, when we're in that period just before our period, not a great time to be communicating. It's a really good time to be aware of and acknowledging where you're feeling disrespected, what's frustrating you, what's making you angry, why the socks on the bathroom floor are pissing you off, all of those things. And holding on to it, that's a real skill. Reflecting on it during your period, because that's a great time to come within. And then when we're in that sort of moving into that warrioress lover energy, that's when we have the conversations and we talk about it from the perspective of, this is how it makes me feel. This is what we need to do. How do we work this out together? Let's problem solve this together, rather than, oh my God, you're not listening to me anymore. It's always me. I'm in the wrong. Because they'll just be like, blah, 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 go. So it's really learning how to have a conversation, what energy you need to put it in. So even if you are in that phase before your period, and what I call then the disempowered queen or the maleficent, you're off with their heads, because the queen energy is very discerning. She's very humble. She holds her energy very, very graciously. So maybe you need to go and put some music on. Maybe you need to, put your crown on, pull your shoulders back, put your cloak on, and then go and speak from a place of discernment and from a place of, let's problem solve this together. This is what I need. What do you need? How do we make this work together? And that definitely has supported quite a few of the women that I've worked with in feeling heard for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so true. I learned from my aunt 10 years ago that when we go at our partners, this can be true of same-sex partners as well.
Yeah,
there does tend to be like a flow between the masculine and the feminine. One is perhaps more in the essence than the other of one or the other, but definitely there's a flow, as there is in our relationship. We're in different sex relationships, and there will be a flow between the feminine and the masculine depending on the day, between the man and the woman as well. But certainly from looking at a man, they are programmed to want to please women, right? And so when we are what they perceive as nagging, and ultimately it probably is, what they're hearing is, you don't make me happy. And so when you can go with that queen energy, like you say, and just show up and be, ethereal and present with them, and just say, I want to find a way that I can feel happy and you can feel happy. They'll want that.
Absolutely.
They want to make you happy.
Yeah.
And it's enticing for them, for you to go to them with that energy.
Yeah.
So I learned that a long time ago, and it really works. It's a great phrase that I've used with Josh a lot. It would make me really happy if.
Yeah, and I've done the same with Dan. And what's really interesting is the nagging often comes because we don't speak our truth. Yes. We don't say what we really need. When we're in certain energies, we let it all go. And then 2 weeks later, it's no longer acceptable. And nobody, your children, your partner, whoever you're cohabiting with, are just like, I don't know where I stand anymore. So if you find that you're constantly nagging, that for me would be an invitation to look at, where are your needs not being met? Where are your boundaries not being set? Because the queen is very much about setting boundaries. Now, what's very interesting about what you just shared there, Rochelle, was the lover energy is all about allowing the masculine to be masculine. And I think that was a really valid point you made, because for many women, and I'll just talk now about being, you know, someone who identifies as a woman, we can quite often disempower our men by constantly being in the masculine and not allowing them to be in their masculine energy. And for some of us, that comes, I know for me, that came from values and belief system that was instilled in me by my mum. For some of us, it may come from trauma. It may come from, you know, from past life. It may come because we spend all day in the masculine at work and we don't have any kind of ritual or system for, you know, shaking that off and then stepping back into our home life in more lover, mother energy. And again, this isn't about eroding anything or disempowering, because sometimes people go, oh, soft power, I don't want to be soft. There's nothing soft about soft power. It's about learning how to harness what the model I work with, which came from the one of many school of coaching, is about, you know, harnessing these 5 soft power types so that you can really harness your energy, step into each situation with the right energy embodied within you, so that we're constantly, or as much as we can be, in this win-win situation.
I won't, but I could literally talk to you about that for about 10 hours.
Yeah.
You know, this is not about that conversation, but it's.
But we'll have it when you're ready to talk about it for your next program. We'll just
yeah, for sure, exactly. It's like a back and forth between our programs. Like, isn't that so beautiful? Like, Mary's saying that because she interviewed me for a cleanse that I recently ran, but like, and I've got other things to come. But isn't it so beautiful that, like, oh, we were literally just talking about this before we started recording, that women who are doing this work and who have you know, gone through some of this process, so much to do, right? So much unpicking to do.
Yeah.
But you were saying at the beginning about community and how the calling creates community and shows women, some women, many women for the first time now, they can come together with women without judgment, working collectively for their own healing and for the greater good of humanity. And you know, women don't believe that. Many women don't believe that they can come together with women that way. And we've had to go through our own process of that, you know, of not seeing each other as competition, right? And so many other women as competition, but actually just lifting one another up. And this, what you're offering out, is the beginning point for women. Well, you know, the beginning or an early stage perhaps for women to see that is possible, and they can live with women without judgment. Because you mentioned, you know, why is it that we're so strongly in our masculine? And I think a huge part of that is the generations going back. Like, we have had to form that protection for ourselves.
Yeah.
And, you know, the calling is such a powerful, like, name for a program, Mary, because women are need this. They need to be called back to themselves. They need to be called back to truth. They need to be called back to their essence, because we're all fucking exhausted.
Well, and this is the whole thing, you know, when I went in 2019 to a workshop, I was invited to go by another girlfriend who we both know, Rachel CK, and she invited me to come down to London with her to this conference. I didn't know what I was going to. I actually thought I was going to something else, which is always the way for me when I fall into something that makes sense to me. I was in London the next day anyway for a course. So I was like, yeah, hell yeah, let's go. And literally within the first 15 minutes, when Dr. Joanna Martin was talking about Superwoman and exactly this, you know, we see it, you know, on, oh my God, every time I see someone with it on a t-shirt, I'm like, I want to grab it off them. But I am a little bit of a reformed smoker because, you know, I identify with Superwoman. But what Joanna was sharing was that when we're constantly in Superwoman, because don't get me wrong, Superwoman needs to show up every now and again. is when we live in her 24/7, 365, 50 years for me, you know, probably, of being in that superwoman. We are depleted. And when we are depleted, we turn up as bitch, martyr, or victim. Hello, I can identify with all three of them. But more importantly, when she started speaking about the fact, and I hadn't heard this before, we hear about fight or flight. Yeah, we hear about fight or flight, but there's a third element, which is freeze. And when I was sat there and she spoke about being frozen, I was like, oh my God, that I truly identified with at that point in time, because I had probably gone through about 2 or 3 years of feeling frozen. And then when she started talking about how the different power types match with the energy of the female cycle, I was like, and here's the missing piece. Here is the missing piece for me. And if it's the missing piece for me, it has to be the missing piece for somebody else. And literally in that 15 minutes, the first 15 minutes, I was like, sign me up. This is what I now need to work on for myself. This is what I need to share, because I was so passionate about talking to women about their periods, and I understood the energy. But to have the names, and also more importantly, you know, being that little bit older than yourself and going through the menopause transition, it's a real calling back to ourselves. It's a real calling of releasing what no longer serves, because we've then got the next chapter without the bleed, but still with this very, very cyclical nature and this real opportunity to be the girl we always wanted to be, the girl that we stopped being because that's what mummy told us, or that's what society told us, or that's what work told us. You know, oh my God, you know, the ribbing I used to get at Toyota for the glittery earrings, and sometimes I'd wear peep toe sandals. I was working in the fucking office, you know, but I also get, you know, everyone has to be treated equally and so on and so forth in that space. But yeah, it was like, oh my God, I am a female. I identify, and if I want to wear, and you're not stopping me from doing it. So, you know, so yeah, it's you know, it's that bringing, and that's the beauty for me as well, is I don't know everything that I know over the last 35 years now of being in business, either for others or for myself. Everything I've learned about, you know, pelvic floor and biomechanics and nutrition and it all comes together. But I was thinking about this, knowing that we were coming here today, and I've been there. It doesn't matter how much business coaching you get, how much you're taught to teach targets and know your numbers and do this and that, because if up here you do not know your worth, you do not understand how you show up in the world, and more importantly, how to then embrace, embody, and absolutely freaking love who you are and how you show up, and get out of that comparison lane. Doesn't matter how much money you spend on business coaching, it's not going to happen. And it's not just about business, it's, you know, it's about life. One of my clients shared with me the other day that she was driving home from work, and she decided to call her mum. And she hasn't had that kind of conversation with her mum for years. And, you know, I don't need to know names if she's listening. I know you gave me permission to share this. And she sort of sat on my sofa with tears in her eyes, saying, and you gifted me this, the calling gifted me this, because it's allowed her in her own time and in her own way to peel away some of the armor, to allow herself to be more of the woman she wants to show up, not the bravado, not the fortress, you know, to allow some of that armor down, because she knows that she's got her own back and it's safe to do so. And she can show up in the loving, open-hearted way that she's always wanted to.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Just think it's transformative, you know. You and I were talking yesterday as well about you know, our offerings to the world. And we were speaking about, you know, you've said at the beginning, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this. But really what it is the transformation. Like, you know, it's not 6 months of this with this many calls and like, you know, you get this from me and you get a workbook. It's, you get to transform your life. You get to move forwards. And I know women will, you know, who follow you on social media, they'll be seeing you right now living your best life. And, you know, social media can be misleading at times, but I know Mary, and I know she really is living her best life. And they may be thinking, you know, gosh, I wish I could do that. But, you know, you have taken this knowledge, taken, you know, this learning for yourself, and you've embodied it. And you really, truly have, you know, lived it. And so you're not just coming, you know, sometimes coaching can be like, oh, I like the idea of coaching about that, and just like, I'm going to bash it out and stick it out there. You've spent years embodying this, and you're bringing it now to your community to, you know, give women a platform for their own transformation. And that's a really incredible, beautiful thing. They'll be doing it with other women, like you say. It includes like community calls and
so if we, you know, and that's it, isn't it? And it's so interesting, isn't it? Because again, that we're in the masculine there, aren't we? It's this, it's that, it's 6 months, it's this, that's very, what is it? What do I get for my money? Almost, you cannot put a price with this kind of work for what you get, because you get you back. You get you back. You get to be who you want to be, unashamedly, guilt-free, but with humility and with love and with compassion and with nurturing and nourishment and all of the good things. So in terms of the sort of nuts and bolts, if we want to be like, right, what's the system? The system is everybody gets an individual one-to-one. And by the way, I don't work with any more than 6 women in the container, because I want everyone to be seen and everyone to be heard. And sometimes I think in big groups, we can get lost in the noise. And, you know, again, that allows some real connection to be made. But don't worry, you know, you don't have to be everyone's best friend, but you do need to show up without judgment and allow yourself to be seen and others to be seen and heard. So you have your own individual one-to-one, so that we can really get into your personal history as much as you want to give. And we also elicit your values. So we do a values elicitation, which is really, really interesting. And we put that into order. And I keep that very, very safe. And we don't look at it again until the end of the container. I might pull you back on some of your history, particularly if we're seeing, you know, repeating patterns or things coming up. But the values, I just keep safe and to the side. We then have a fortnightly 2-hour coaching call. So prior to that, I will send you what I call home fun. So I will send you information on the topic that we are going to be sharing. We then share what we think about it, any Q&A, it's all live. We may do a bit of dancing, we may do some meditation. It's very much space holding. Where are you at? What do you need? And then we move on, and we repeat that for 12 2-hour sessions. That's because I feel if we did it every week, did it over 12 weeks, there's a lot, you know, life is very busy. So there's space to be able to sort of ebb and flow with
and integrate
and absolutely integrate and have the conversations and come into, you know, the group and say or cheer, and everyone else can, you know, empathize, support, give their advice if you ask for that advice. And then, as I say, at the end, we have the not the graduation, let's call it a graduation, where everyone then gets an individual one-to-one again, and you get to review Because sometimes you may feel nothing's really changed, but when we do the values elicitation again and we see that the order's changed, and quite often what you'll see is things like recognition and responsibility and making a difference in the world are the sort of top values, for example, at the start.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know you know what they're gonna, by the end, it's joy, it's love, it's happiness, it's health. It's completely changed from these external markers and recognitions of our value and our worth to, this is what I need to feel in me. Mm-hmm. This is my value. So am I doing what I do from love? Am I doing and this is very much me. If it don't bring me joy, it's a hell no. Mm-hmm. And all those kinds of, and those things. You also get the opportunity to have 2 one-to-ones with me during that 6-month period if you feel you need extra help, or you just want a little bit more time. But other than that, it's group coaching, a community group where you can share. And I'm very much if you haven't done the work, you haven't done the work. What's stopping you doing the work? What do we need to lean into? Because you can always catch back. I'm also going to bring in this time a few little guesty people to support us. So we have an opening ceremony and a closing ceremony as well, which obviously for me will involve cacao if you like cacao.
Of course, who doesn't like cacao?
Do you know what? Some people love it and they can't drink it. And we do some vision, a little bit more vision board working, maybe some energy work. Just a few, but I try not to make it too complicated because I really want the 6 months to be about, how do I retire this superwoman? How do I let go? I mean, I remember as well, women come and they're like, yeah, I've heard you. A couple of weeks in, they're like, how do I get everything done in my life if I'm retiring superwoman? I can't do, we all go through that Kubler-Ross model of resistance and pain.
Yeah.
Trust the process. Because life will still throw you the curveballs in 6 months' time, but you will have these, the Fab Five, the famous 5, whoever you want to call them, you will have these resources that have always been within you. Who are all empowered and balanced and know how to show up. And more importantly, you know how to call them in. So we have a beautiful tool called the wisdom process, which basically is, I've got a situation. What's the situation? What would the sorceress do? What would the queen do? What would the mother do? What would the warrioress do? And what would the lover do? Right, who am I going to take with me? Whose advice am I going to take? And that, it's beautiful, I'm so blessed that all of these beautiful tools and resources are available for me. Obviously, the magic that I bring is me, my story, my energy, and my absolute cheering you on to be whoever it is you want to be. I don't even want to say the best version of you, because you may feel you may already be the best version of you. It just needs some tweaking or twinkling or whatever. If you want to come from a health perspective, great. If you want to come from a business perspective, it doesn't matter. What you're recognizing is that you're constantly dancing with burnout. You don't know how to get off this, and you want to show up in a way that feels aligned, embodied, and just makes you think, yeah, this is me.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, like, who is the woman that comes to you, but you've just answered that. So yeah.
I mean, and again, I had an absolute range of women come from, I think my youngest client was late 30s, all the way through. I think I was the oldest this time, but there's sort of no age limit. I would probably say it's for that midlife woman, but that doesn't mean it can't be for younger people at all, because as we both know, quite often it's the youngest who will teach us the most. But yeah, one woman's actually worked her way through. She's now living in Spain. She's living her dream. You know, another woman is now, as I say, she's now got better relationships with family. Other people have just got busy lives and they're just much more able to cope and manage. You know, someone else now has a much better relationship with her husband and feels like they're sharing the family life rather than it all being down to her. So these for me are the big, you know, this, I'm not interested in the six-figure stuff. This is the stuff that makes us feel good every day. You know, better family life, better relationship with ourselves, better relationships with our parents. And, you know, I love the fact that you said this morning on your podcast that I was listening to, yeah, you know, I need to go and sit in that wee house and have a little conversation with my mom. But, you know, this is the beauty. It's, you know, and I never, God, oh my God, I cry all the way through as well. So again, if you want a coach that's just sitting there with no emotion, please, if you've listened this far, I apologize. But I do it because I feel such pride.
Yes.
And such honor.
Well, who would want a coach that didn't feel those things? Yeah,
you know, to see you evolving, to know that I played a little part in that in my own way, but more importantly, that you trusted me to hold that space for you. And this is what you've achieved by trusting and walking side by side for as long as we need to do that.
Beautiful. So when do you start?
We start on the 26th of September because autumn is a time of letting go. We start with the autumn equinox. And again, if you're like, what the hell, that doesn't matter. We start in autumn. When the leaves are falling, we're letting go of what no longer serves us. We will have an opening ceremony. It's on a Monday, so I have a Monday morning slot and I have a Monday evening slot. Six people in each. We then have a 2-week window where I will book in all of your one-to-ones if we haven't done so already, and then we start with our fortnightly calls and we go all the way through to the spring equinox. Because that then gives us the opportunity to come into the spring with our own little new shoots of growth, with, you know, this new strength, this new inner strength. We've been wintering with all of the power types. We've really come within and got to know ourselves. We do take a little break over the Christmas period because we honor the importance of family time and not having too much going on in the mix. But we come into the spring with this newfound energy and then we get the chance to, you know, embody, because the summer is all about freedom for me. It's about time, it's about joy, it's about enjoying all that life, you know, bearing the sort of fruits of our labors and seeing it all blooming and growing. Because originally I was going to run 2 a year. And after running the first one, it just did not make sense to run this kind of program through the summer. So again, vicariously, but also on purpose, you get to learn to be in tune with the cycles. So in August, as I say, in the autumn, we're letting go. In the winter, we're coming within. And then in the spring, we start to lift our energy and push back out again. So, you know, you can take as much of what I call the magic and miracles with you. The reason I wanted to and was so excited when you said, because I would have done this on my own, but I always think it's nice to have a two-way conversation, is I've got a super early bird. So there are 10 days left to take advantage of the super early bird, which ends on the 31st of July. So if you are hearing the calling, if you've already been sort of looking around and thinking, what's this all about? And we've answered some of the questions, and you're thinking, yes, there's £100 deposit to be paid before the 31st of July. And you can then join me in autumn for the total price of £1,111.
Angel numbers.
angel numbers. You need to pay another £300 before we start, but you can spread that. I have a payment plan. It's all in there. There's terms and conditions for that, you know. So again, we're working with that masculine and feminine energy. But I would really love all 12 places. 2 of them have already gone because I've got 6 and 6 to go on the early bird price. Because I want you to be able to invest in you in a way that you can afford. From the 1st of August, the price goes up to 1,888. And if you're a super late bird, and you can't make a decision until the 1st of September, it's £2,222. So really today, all you need to do is put down £100 deposit and secure the £1,111.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's like, that's such a beautiful offer for women, that price, because, you know, again, we were talking yesterday about, you know, the value of transformation in the program and the transformation over 6 months as well that they get with you. You know, that's a long time, and it's, you know, a huge transformation that's going to be happening, and huge amounts of your energy going into it. And so, you know, the cost of 2,222 is, you know, even that, I would say, is really good value. So to be getting it for the 1111
and 11 pence, because there's 6 1, so 8 numbers, but the number 6 is all about love and compassion and nurturing and nourishing.
I love it. You know, like the you know, it's, the numbers are so important to you as well, and it's so beautiful that you put that into your pricing.
Yeah,
I think, you know, as I said, you know, any woman listening to this that is like, oh, I'm not sure, but I'm super interested, I'm intrigued, then just don't let your thinking mind get involved. How often do we let our thinking mind stop us from moving forwards? Our life is so short. And we are here for growth. We are here for transformation. If we are living a life without growth and without transformation, we are not living our life anywhere near to its fullest, and we're wasting it, in my opinion. This is the time for women right now to come back to this truth, come back to this essence of who we are, and start living truly happy, you know, fluid, embodied lives. For many women, you know, it's not possible to do that by ourselves. We need support, we need community to do that, and what you're offering in the calling is just that. So I'm really excited for every woman that gets to be part of this with you.
Am I?
Yeah, it's amazing. So is there anything else you wanted to share before we go?
No, I think I said no, but I meant yes. So so the first thing is, if you are intrigued and you're all in, fabulous. If you're intrigued but you're thinking, I'd like to know more, then as Rochelle said, we can do a discovery call, but I would like to offer you the opportunity to have your free soft power profile done, so that you start to get an essence of the work that we would be doing, and we can use that as an opportunity to catch up and connect. But we need to get that done by the 31st of the month. And I would even say, you know, you can put the deposit down straight away to secure that price. If at the discovery call you say it's not for me, I'll just refund you the deposit. I've got this isn't about, it's about what's right for you. But for me, truly, I would love everybody to get on board for £1,111 and 11 pence. So make the deposit, book the discovery call. I know for most it will be a yes, I made the right decision. And if it isn't, it's a simple exchange of energy back, and you still got to know what your soft power types are. And maybe you join me next year or the year after, because I know this is. So my whole life, my whole sort of work life is geared around, I have this 6-month container, and then the rest of the 6 months I do some of the other fun work that I love to do. And this again is part of this batching for energy matching, you know, cycle of creation, knowing who I've got around, all the good things. I've found such a way to live my life in the way that I want to do it. And that's what I'd like to gift you. And then the last thing I would like to say, and I'm called to make a reading from the book Sacred. So we're just going to close the book.
Every time, right?
Every time. This is reading 1, 2, 3 from Sacred by the gorgeous Lynette Allen. It's making me cry. So there you go. How do the women of the world get their spells back? She asked. By listening to their intuition, he replied.
Wow.
You are invited to listen to your intuition.
Yes. So powerful. Amazing. Thank you for having me here with you, Mary.
Oh no, thank you so much for making this happen. It feels the right way to share, and I'm just super intrigued and super excited to find out who hears the calling.